You guys know I'm always talking about tracking my money. You can't manage what you don't measure. And I use a paid app to do that because I'm kind of crazy. But when I talk to you guys, my readers and my listeners, you want a free solution. You want something that links to your personal accounts and tracks your net worth. You want something that has analysis tools and a personalized plan for you. And you want real wealth management advice. The free answer is personal capital. Personal capital is an awesome tool, and it is hard to believe that it's free. And the world agrees. Year after year, personal capital is recognized as a best in class budgeting and tracking tool. And that's why I feel good about being affiliated with them. So if you want to start getting your finances in order and you want to do it for free, start with personal capital. Here's how: go to the show notes, click on that link, and let them know that the best interest sent you, and start your free account today. That's Personal Capital, your all in one free personal finance tool.
Welcome to the Best Interest Podcast, hosted by Jesse Kramer, where we discuss today's best ideas in personal finance and investing. The Best Interest is a personal podcast meant for entertainment purposes only. It should not be taken as financial advice and is not prescriptive of your financial situation. Here's your host, Jesse Kramer.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 33 of the Best Interest Podcast. My name is Jesse Kramer. My guest today is a fella named Jared, better known though by his social media handle Money Jrod. And I'll tell you, Jrod has a story that I think 98% of you are going to relate to. That story is being young, being in debt, and being unsure of the best way out. I think most of us were there at one point in our lives. Well, Jared found a good way out, and it's a simple way out. And I love that he shares those simple, effective tactics with his audience. But real quick, before I introduce our guest, could you please pause the show and then in your podcast app, give a rating and review to the Best Interest Podcast? Why? Because the Best Interest, it's a growing small business, and I want to keep making this content for people just like you. A rating and a review, it lets all those fancy algorithms know that you care about this podcast. And I know I'm asking for your time, I'm asking for your effort, and I know that you don't owe me anything. So I really appreciate those of you who decide to sacrifice that time and effort to leave that rating and review. Thank you guys. So with that, let's go meet our guest. All right, folks, if my guest today was a professional wrestler, I would push for his nickname to be the Alabama Debt Killer. I think it's got a nice ring to it, no? Because yes, he overcame some pernicious debt, and his resounding message, it focuses on one important concept: simplicity. His ideas are terrific because not only are they effective in helping people, but they're simple enough for everyday people to implement. So I am pumped to pick his brain today and share some of those ideas with you. Here he is, Jared, a.k.a. Money Jrod. Welcome, Jared, to the Best Interest Podcast. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing awesome. And how did you know I was a professional wrestler, by the way?
It was something, I think I saw a picture once maybe, and you were wearing like a leotard and it looked like you were holding a mask in your hand. And I just thought, is he a professional wrestler and he just hasn't told anybody yet?
Yeah, so kidding, of course, but if I was a wrestler, it would definitely be the Alabama Debt Killer. So love that so
Well,
much.
and the fact of the matter is, Jared, a lot of people out there on Money Twitter think about side hustles. So maybe that's just one of your side hustles. On the weekend, you go to the ring, wherever it happens to be near you, you just jump off the turnbuckle and drop some elbows on people.
So I'll put that on my list of potential side hustles.
It's a resume builder. It's a resume
That's right.
builder.
That's right.
Well, Jared, any good wrestler, or even anyone who's not a wrestler, it's always fun to hear a cool backstory. So I was hoping you could give us your backstory, whether it's the Money J-Rod backstory or the reason why I'm calling you the Alabama Debt Killer. I mean, how did your money journey begin?
Yeah, sure. So, spoiler alert, it involves debt. But going back a little bit further than that, I started off just like a lot of people, around 18, 19 years old. I got out of high school and went straight to college, and didn't really have a grasp on the concept of money or investing or spending, really anything to do with money. I was completely ignorant on. And one day my mother gave me a book, and it was the turning point, I guess you would say, for me starting to right the ship or start learning about finances. But it was Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. And I'm sure that's the beginning of millions of people's journey, and it was certainly the beginning of mine. But the thing about it though, is I read that book from cover to cover, but I kind of set it down and I was like, okay, that's cool. It's the concepts are cool, but it didn't really resonate with me at the time. So fast forward a little bit, I go into college, graduate college, and then my wife, at the time she was my girlfriend, we finally got married. We dated for about 6 years, and so just like any normal married couple, we started accumulating a little bit of debt here and there. Nothing too crazy starting off, just one credit card here, one credit card there, car payment. We bought a house shortly after getting married, so just started um, trending in that direction that millions of other Americans find themselves in today, unfortunately. And until one day, in our brand new house that we just, well, it wasn't brand new, it was new to us, but we walk into our house one day and we walk into the bedroom and there is a tiny bug on the wall. And you don't really think much about that kind of stuff around here because in the South there's bugs all over the place. It's like
Mhm.
100% humidity here all the time. So bugs are going to find their way in the house. No big deal. But upon further investigation, we found it wasn't just a bug, it was a termite. And just like around here too, that's one of the issues that we deal with here in the South. There's two kinds of houses in the South. If you've never heard, there's one that doesn't have termites, and there's one that's about to get termites. It's just something that we deal with. So when we made that discovery, we kind of freaked out a little bit, um, and had somebody come look at it, a professional uh, pest control company. And luckily, the damage wasn't super, super severe. However, it was enough to where we had to get a pretty um, extensive repair done for treatment, and then a long-term treatment plan also too. Um, so, and that cost us somewhere around $8,000 for the treatment, and then setting up a long-term treatment plan. So, but we didn't have the money to pay for it, of course. So what we do, we went and borrowed the money, which actually for that we used some financing through the termite company, and just like that, boom, financed $8,000 along with all the other debt that we had accumulated up to that point. So, and we had to do something, right? I mean, we couldn't just let it keep going.
Right.
So,
Right.
so had to do something. But it wasn't until after we actually borrowed the money, and I sat down on my computer one day looking at my bank account, and then it just hit me all of a sudden, thinking, okay, we just financed $8,000, and it really didn't phase us. It was just
Mm.
a normal, quote unquote, normal thing. And that was our mindset at the time. But at that moment, I thought, we're going in the wrong direction here. We've got aspirations that me and my wife want to do,
Mhm.
and it involves, having kids one day, and we want to open up a business potentially in the future. But with our finances the way that it was at the time, there was no way that we could pursue those dreams. So that was our wake up moment, so to say. And then went back to the bookshelf and took out that old book, rubbed the dust off of it, and opened it back up and actually took it to heart this time. And by that point, it had been probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years after I had read The Total Money Makeover initially. And we actually took it a step further and went through the course
Yeah.
online. So, great course for anybody that's in debt. And it changed our mindset around borrowing money, and the babies. I'm not going to get into that, but basically we did the baby steps, and
Hmm.
but the one thing that helped us was we started a budget, and we can talk about that more later on. But when you utilize the budget, and I want to say it was around 6 to 7 months later, we had the debt paid off. Grand total was somewhere around $30,000. That's not including the mortgage. So yeah, we got it done, man. We made the budget, got to work, and paid it off. Paid the car off, paid the term out loan off, paid off the credit cards. We cut up a bunch of credit cards. We didn't get rid of all the credit cards. So all you Dave Ramsey purists, we didn't do it 100%, but we did get out of debt by utilizing his method,
Okay.
and from there, just started investing after that. So, but just that's kind of the high level story there.
Well, I do want to come back. I want to talk about Dave Ramsey. I do want to talk a little bit about the budget. I'm interested to hear about your budget. But
Yeah,
first, I just want to point out and just highlight the fact that these termites kind of threw a wrench in your plan, or you never saw them coming, right? No one
right.
expects termites. Who expects termites? But they put you on this financial path where, in your own words, or I'm just going to paraphrase roughly here, the debt made it so that your dreams, that your and your wife's dreams potentially couldn't come true. You wanted to start a business. Well, it's kind of hard to get a line of credit if you have consumer debt hanging over you. You wanted to have kids. Well, first, it's nice to get out of debt before you have those kids. And the whole idea of an emergency fund, or the whole idea of financial freedom, the thing that we're all working towards, is so that when the termites come, when those curveballs come that life throws at you, that you have a buffer and that you're ready to take on those emergencies head on, even though it's no fun. And the tough
Right.
part about being in a little bit of debt is that that termite curveball, man, it can push you off balance. And it sounds like, you guys got pushed off balance a little bit and you needed to find a way to, in your words, right that ship.
Yeah, and I also like to say that, you know, the termites were literally eating away at our house, but this debt likewise was eating away at our cash flow
Hmm.
and eating away at our potential for our dreams that I talked about previously. So it's interesting that it was termites and how you can relate the two, but it's so true. And yeah, you're right. It definitely threw a curveball in our plans. Um, but that's why I'm so passionate about emergency funds, is because I've had the emergencies happen to me.
Yeah.
And when you have that, it kind of alters your thinking or your philosophy around money. I know there's a lot of talk about emergency funds, these days, especially with interest rates and cash is trash and all that. And then there's smart ways to utilize cash and emergency funds, but there's something to say about the peace of mind that they bring, and going into finances with a spouse in the relationship, you have to consider their feelings as well. And my wife, specifically, she values having that security, having that emergency fund in place as a way to make her feel secure. And I value that. I value her opinion and I value her feeling secure. So that's why I place value in the emergency fund, maybe a little more than some people do. And if you don't, that's fine. But if you do, then absolutely go for it. If you feel comfortable with 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever your risk tolerance is. Us personally, we only do 3 months, and if your job situation is more stable, or if you have some other means, like you could potentially cash flow some stuff, maybe you can go a little less than that, or maybe you can go a little higher. But that's just us, what we do personally, and we've been rocking and rolling with that 3 month ever since, and so we've not modified that any.
That's excellent. I am not an expert on finances and relationships. I'm in a long term relationship and I hope it stays as a long term relationship. But that's just one thing that we haven't really sat down yet and talked about. Are we going to combine finances? How do we feel about our finances? We both trust each other as being reasonably frugal and responsible. So we have that going for us. But I love that, J Rod, how you value how your wife feels about your finances and you value the security that you get from an emergency fund. And you were very kind about the way you phrased something there, where you said it's not always popular to talk about emergency funds and cash is trash, because there are a lot of people in our community right now who say, why would you keep money in a bank account where it's only earning 0.1% or 0.3%, or maybe if you're lucky, 0.5%, when you could be investing in the stock market and making 20% a year, because that's what we've been doing recently. And it's really cool to tell your audience that you could be making a lot of money by not having an emergency fund. It sounds amazing. It really does. But it's a lot harder, in my opinion, to take a step back and talk about risk versus reward, and talk about the risk that you're putting your money under by putting in a place that's not a standard bank account, whether it's a crypto loaning account that's not FDIC insured. That's something that's talked about a lot. I'm not a huge fan of it. Or it could be putting your money in the stock market where you want to expose it to that risk because it's probably going to gain more than in a bank. But when emergency strikes, when the termites start eating, it's nice to be able to depend on the money that you have. And the best way to do that is through a standard emergency fund.
Right. I've thought so hard about doing something different with my 3 month emergency fund. Um, I've been tempted to throw it into Bitcoin. All of those types of investment. But I just consider how would my wife feel about it? And,
Hmm. Hmm.
she's not as involved with the finances as I am, but again, it goes back to, knowing where we're at and how, money is involved in our relationship. And so I just keep it parked right there because I know she values that. So it's just what we do. Um, and again, if you feel differently, that's perfectly fine. If other listeners out there maybe don't feel like putting cash, to side like that, that's perfectly fine. But it's what we do, and we understand the impact of that. The opportunity cost. It's something that we understand. Um, but we also use that as the springboard for our investment journey, because if we didn't have that emergency fund in place, we would feel tempted to potentially sell some investments in the event of emergency. And we could get creative with our budget too, to cash flow some stuff. That's what we've done before too. We've had some stuff come up, where we didn't necessarily pull from our emergency fund, but we got creative on our budget and used our cash flow to be able to pay things. And that's 9 times out of 10 what we do. And I feel like a lot of other people do that as well, especially in the money Twitter world, and that's great. Um, but for those that are a little bit tighter with their budget, don't have the extra cash flow, or maybe they're in a situation where they have some debt, the emergency fund is an absolute must. And I would encourage anyone to build one up, and after paying off your debt, and even if you're debt free, keep an emergency fund. It's just what I personally do, and it's what I tell my encourage my followers to do. But
Gotcha.
yeah, that's the way we utilize one.
Well, let's actually talk a little bit about your budget, and then also you mentioned there the cash flow method that you use to pay for things, so you don't have to dip into your emergency fund. Maybe we can talk about that too. But to start, I mean, what kind of budget do you guys run? Do you use an app? Is it all on a spreadsheet? Like, how do you do that? And then, I'm curious how it enabled you to pay off this $30,000 in debt in a really short, impressive time period. You were saying 6 or 7 months. So, how does budgeting tie in with that?
Yeah, so, and I promise I'm not sponsored by Dave Ramsey or anything like that,
No, no, go for it, man.
but
You're
we
good.
but we we use his Every Dollar app, and
Okay,
it's something that we started off with, going all the way, which we started the Total Money Makeover, that whole program before Every Dollar even came out. But prior to that, we used Mint,
hmm,
and I liked Mint, but it was to me, it was a little clunky and not as user friendly, because you had to modify the categories, and sometimes the labels kind of shifted. Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at
gotcha.
Mint, but we use Every Dollar now. It's super user friendly. We actually pay for the Every Dollar Plus, so it links to our bank account, and all of our expenditures go into a queue, and then we just go in. It's just a drag and drop feature. After that, we set our budget. We have a budget meeting, not every month. We used to sit down every month. We've kind of shifted toward like an every other month or maybe 2 months. We'll sit down and talk about things. Um, so, but when we swipe our debit card, we just move those expenses over and it makes it super, super easy. Um, so that's what we use now. And it was crucial when we was paying off our debt because when we first sat down, going back after we discovered the termites, it was just amazing to sit down and put all of our expenses in and everything that we've been spending. And it was just like, holy crap, how did we just get completely irresponsible where we was just spending because we were spending more than we made and was going in the hole but just actually seeing it in person is that's it's very impactful.
Hmm.
And when you sit down and see that and you start looking at all the things that you can cut out, like all the random trips to, I don't know, Belk. We had a Belk credit card, and it was actually something that I got. It wasn't my wife. It was it was something that I got, and just random trips there. Um, it all adds up. Eating out, man, we were spending about $1,000 a month at one point at the high point, eating out.
Oh,
And
yep.
so it was just crazy. And so once you cut all that out and you just get down to, okay, here's our income, here's our bills, our utilities, and here's the other things that we know we need, right? And then you see all the money that's left because we do a zero-based budget. We utilize a zero base so we can see how much we have left at the top after we allocate all of our expenses versus
Yep.
our income.
Yep.
So when you see that number at the top, you got X amount left to budget. That's essentially what you have to play with. Because in every dollar it shows it at the top. How much you
Yeah.
have left to budget.
Yep.
And so when you see that money, I call it cloud money because it's up in the cloud, right? So we have a lot of cloud money here we can play with, and that's what we threw at the debt.
Okay.
Um, we would take that quote unquote cloud money and we would throw it at the debt each month. And when you see that balance slowly drop, you get motivated. And we did the debt snowball, of course. And so all the largest debt, regardless of interest rate, it was, or I'm sorry, smallest at the top and
Right.
worked your way down.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, no.
And
Okay.
then we had a one credit card that was like 500 balance, and we had one that was like, I want to say it was like a little over 1,000, something like that. So we just started knocking those off. And when you start seeing all of those uh, debt levels going off, it's
Hmm.
super, super motivating. And it was for us. And when we just got on fire with it, we went completely headstrong with it. And I wish I could say that there was a something special that we did or some kind of elaborate system that we utilized, but that was really it. And I'm going back to my simple way of managing finances. That's
Yeah.
that's the simple way we paid off our debt. And but being in the unique situation that we were in with being married,
Hmm.
you have to navigate through that a certain way too, right? Like, because I was super motivated at the time. My wife wasn't so much. I had to get her on board. So speaking for a moment on that is I had to approach it in a way that, okay, how will it impact us and our future? And I'm not coming to her with a plan. I'm coming to her with us a plan and keep her aspirations and goals in mind too while navigating through this. Because I mean, you can go just, hey, this is what we're going to do and just be real headstrong with it. But that's definitely not the way to approach it. And that's how I started off at first. And let me tell you, that's definitely not the way to do it because there was a proverbial wall that went up and just completely shut me down. So I had to go approach it in a different way. And that's what I did. I started speaking about, okay, what can we do with this debt out of our life? And that's when we started talking about these dreams that I mentioned earlier. We want to be able to finance a portion of our kids' college through 529s. We want to invest potentially to the point where we can retire early. We want to maybe open up that coffee shop one day that we've always dreamed about. So all of these things that we mentioned at our dream meeting on what we can do when we pay this debt off, it really brings a sense of unity to the conversation and a sense of teamwork. And then it's not me against you and the debt, it's us against the debt. And so, because at that point, it's you all against the debt, and the budget is the tool that you're going to use to defeat it. And so, because it doesn't matter if you're going to go off and do something different, what good is the budget, right? I mean, you can sit down and make a plan, but the plan is only as good as you utilizing the plan and actually executing it. So, yeah, I can sit here and talk all day long about you making a budget,
Hmm.
but if you actually do not carry it out, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
So that's a super, super important part of all of this is the unity component. And, there may be a listener out there that's not married, and that's perfectly fine. It's all up to you at that point. But if you're out there and you're in a relationship where maybe it's you and um, your girlfriend, boyfriend, married, whatever the situation may be, uh, there's different personalities involved, and you have to learn how to navigate through that, or else you're not going to get anywhere. I assure you. So I strongly encourage anyone that's listening to this that's maybe in this situation to sit down and have that dream discussion, because without your spouse on the same board, same team as you, you're going to struggle. I assure you.
I have some high praise for you right now, Jared. I think anybody listening to this is probably saying to themselves right now, like, man, Jared sounds like a pretty good husband. Very thoughtful. I mean, it is very thoughtful. But the high praise is Ramit Sethi, who some of you know. He wrote a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And he's on the pantheon of personal finance thinkers, along with Dave Ramsey, who Jared has mentioned here. I know Ramit is coming out with a new podcast soon, specifically where he sits down and chats with couples, oftentimes couples who have had money issues or are going through money issues, and works with those couples to come together on a cohesive plan. One of the big things that Ramit talks about is what does your quote unquote rich life look like? Talks about people's rich lives, which is just similar to what you just said, Jared, having that dream discussion. What do we want to do? Where do we want to be? How are kids involved? How are we helping our kids? Are we going on vacations? What does that look like? And then you kind of go a step further and say, well, what do our finances need to look like to go there? But step one is sitting down with your partner and deciding what kind of life do you want with them, and the fact that you did that along this journey, I think that's huge. And I'll let you talk about it, but I have to assume that it's really paid off in terms of your relationship with each other as well as your relationship with money.
Yeah, and first of all, I appreciate the kind words, but I'm still learning, man. But I've experienced some stuff. We will be married 10 years next year, so it's a lot of trial and error. I assure you. But yeah, no, it's interesting you mentioned Ramit, because I believe he was on the Tim Ferriss podcast not
Sure
too long ago.
was.
Yeah, I listened to that episode. That was phenomenal,
It
and I'm
was.
looking forward to that show when he finally gets it started. But yeah, it's all money is more psychological than more people would like to admit, or more people know, and it's just something that I've noticed in our personal lives. And even once you get past the debt part, that's a different thing. But even going forward, once you pay off the debt, and maybe you set your systems in place, your investing systems, your spending systems, whatever they may be, because money is a part of life, and from now, until forever. And money is highly psychological, highly emotional. It's one of the most emotional things that we deal with. Money issues is one of the number one causes of divorce in America today, unfortunately. And so this is some super, super important stuff. And the sooner you talk about it and you start discussing it, the better off you'll be. Um, and so having those discussions about what we're going to do is speaking in terms of what we instead of I. that's so important. And but there it's not perfect. We're not perfect. I'm painting a kind of a rosy picture here, but I assure you we're not. And don't expect you to be or any of your listeners to be either, because it's certainly trial and error, and it's a journey, man. It really is. And so I can't say enough about it.
Well, we will keep that in mind for sure. And right, nothing is ever easy, but I'm sure it always gets easier if you're aligned with the people that you're traveling with, and in this case, that's your wife and your family. So good on you, Jared. I was thinking though, real quick before we move on to maybe more of an investing topic or something to talk about other than debt, I would want to talk about Dave Ramsey just real quick because he is a polarizing figure, and I've got some opinions about him that probably aren't as bad as you might think or as the listeners might think. But I'm just curious. You said you followed some of his rules. You haven't followed a couple others. I mean, all in all, what are your thoughts on Dave Ramsey?
So first of all, I believe his methods of getting out of debt are, it speaks for itself. The results speak for themselves. I mean, he's got millions and millions of listeners on his podcast every day. Um, the baby steps were designed with this psychology in mind.
Hmm.
And, I was drinking the Kool-Aid at the very beginning. I mean, I went to his conventions. I actually went there and met him at his headquarters one time. So we were like deep, deep into it. So that portion of it is for anybody that is wanting to pay off debt.
Yep.
If that's your situation, 100%, that's the way to go. Now, Dave is also the training wheels of finance. When you're learning to ride a bike, you've got the training wheels.
Gotcha. I see.
You're starting off and you're learning how to ride the bike, but once you get to that point where you feel comfortable enough to take the training wheels off, then you can go on your own. Well, I like to say that Dave is the training wheels, and this is something I just recently kind of came around to, right?
I like it.
So I'm not necessarily drinking the Kool-Aid some more, so to say, but once you get to that point to where you've learned a thing or two about money, you're out of debt, um, you're starting to build some wealth, um, and you get to where you're ready to start investing. Um, yeah, don't follow his advice. I'm just going to go ahead and say that, because right away when we paid off our debt, I was doing it by the book. I went to the ELP. I got lined up with one of his advisors,
What was that? I'm sorry.
and
Was that EOP?
the ELP, the endorsed local provider, it's one of his
Oh,
things that he
okay.
calls like the people that work for him, or not really work for him, but
He has
it's
some
the people
agreement
that he
with them.
endorses, right?
Yeah.
That he
Okay.
endorses them because they supposedly align with his philosophy or
Uh
whatever.
huh.
But man, we were doing it by the book. We went to this endorsed local provider. We started getting involved with this advisor. He was putting us in mutual funds,
Hmm.
all the stuff that he shows. Um, but then I got to reading a little bit more about these what we were invested in, and it was some really high fees.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
so long story short, got rid of, and we didn't really have a super big portfolio at the time. So when we said that we want to take our money somewhere else, they were like, okay, whatever, go ahead, because they wouldn't make a whole lot off of us anyway.
Okay. Okay.
So so just kind of took the reins at that point and started investing on my own. But just to round out the whole what I think of Dave Ramsey thing, that's essentially it, man. It's get the debt paid off, but once you get beyond that, start looking elsewhere for advice about investing. And I don't think that's a controversial take. I feel like most people agree with that. And when you sit down and look, I mean, there's index funds now that you can buy in that's literally zero fees,
Right.
and you get broad exposure over the whole entire market. That he's not teaching about that stuff. And personally, I feel like he does not do that because he's known as the debt free guy. He's not the investment guy.
Hmm.
If he
Hmm.
starts making some big recommendations about investing on a show, he's going to go off brand.
I
So
see.
I personally feel like that's why he does that. And that's just me. But anyway, yeah, once you get the debt paid off and you're ready to go investing, don't listen to what he says.
Yeah,
high
that's
high fees and just super just not very specific. So yeah,
okay.
go elsewhere.
Well, that aligns pretty closely with my own feelings on Dave. I've written a couple articles about him, and one specifically that jumps to mind is, he catches a lot of hate because some of his rules seem pretty absolute, seem very strict, very much like you said earlier. If people aren't following all of Dave's rules, well, some other of Dave's followers are going to look at them and say, Jared, why are you breaking that rule? Like he's got these strict rules. Well, the fact of the matter is that if a rule is really effective for 80 or 90% of his customers, well, that's probably a good rule.
Mm,
Maybe it doesn't fit everybody. And maybe it's okay to break one or two, but a lot of his rules are working for people to get out of debt. I love that training wheels metaphor. Hadn't heard it before, Jared, but it's so hard in life to fit multiple roles or multiple niches. It's hard to have training wheels on a bike, but then also expect to strap an engine on it and treat it like a motorcycle, right? You,
right,
you kind of have to choose one or the other. And similar here, it's hard for Dave Ramsey, I'm sure, to produce these broad, sweeping rules that can help thousands of people who are in really bad financial situations, but then also to produce these more nuanced rules for lower percentages of people, specific people who are in good financial situations who want very specific advice. It's kind of like, do you want it broad in general or do you want it narrow and specific? It's hard to
right.
do both. One last thing is I heard an interesting thing about Dave Ramsey that he does sometimes specifically. He does not like index funds. He does not like low cost ETFs. I've heard, and again, this is secondhand information, but I've heard that his claim is, why would you ever want average performance? Why would you want average? That's all you get with an index fund. Whereas my mutual funds over here, yeah, they've got some high fees, but he says they get above market performance. Now that is a debatable topic, but
Yeah, and the data shows that most actively managed funds don't outperform the index, right? I mean, you can Google that and
correct.
find that, and he knows that. And so I don't know if he's getting paid to promote these mutual funds. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But again, that just goes back to when you think of Dave Ramsey, you think of the debt get out of debt guy. You don't think about the investment guy. So he would be stepping off brand if he were to be talking about investing. So um, but yeah, for most people, he's the way to go. And that's why I like to talk about books a lot on Twitter, is because when you read that first finance book, whether it's Total Money Makeover or Rich Dad Poor Dad or some kind of other book that's maybe way more nuanced, like you said, that those books alter your philosophy for a long, long time. And so I see people all the time that say, okay, well, my first finance book was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and which is awesome, you know, but he preaches using leverage, and he's real big into gold, and
Hmm.
people that follow me on Twitter know that I'm not a fan of that book, but
Yeah,
reading that book first is like a toddler getting behind a car, and driving, and going to the metaphors. That's and not to say that he won't get there safely, but it's very, very dangerous.
right.
And there's people that have started off with Rich Dad Poor Dad and done very, very well for themselves. Um, but it's all about which one you start with. And, if it's a book, and that's why I recommend Dave for people's, because he at least gets you set on a firm foundation money wise, and then from there branch off and start
Hmm.
learning on your own and doing your own things, and becoming more nuanced in your investment journey, because as we've already said, his is not the way to go.
All right, Jared. So you've mentioned investing a couple times now, and we kind of dipped our toe into it, but let's dive in. What is the investing advice and the simple investing advice that anyone can follow that you push your followers towards?
I love talking about this, and because it's something that changed my philosophy on investing. I mean, well, I didn't really have a philosophy when it came to investing after we paid off our debt. I was just kind of winging it, and played with individual stocks for a little while and was getting burned on those. I mean, just because I didn't have a system in place for it. But then I learned about index funds, and I've been 100% index funds ever since. So what I do personally is I do my 6% match on my 401k at work. Just do that right off the bat. And then from there, I move into Roth IRA, and then from there into a brokerage account. So my 401k is not the best as far as like investment options. So I never max out my 401k. I just do the 6%, and then I move on to just broad-based index funds. I do a S&P 500 index fund in Fidelity, and also do their total market fund, their zero fund
Mm-hmm.
Infidelity. So that's what I'm rocking with right now. I've maxed out the Roth, I think 3 years in a row now. Um, and I'm putting in my brokerage right now. So just again, just S&P 500 index funds there. Um, but it's really simple. I just went and opened up an account in Fidelity because that's where my 401k is. It took maybe 5 minutes to open up a Roth, and from there, um, at the time when I first opened it, I believe I opened up one last year, my Roth last year, right at the pit of COVID, like right when so my time, I mean, I did not time it, I assure you, but I opened up the Roth and I actually transferred some money over from another Roth IRA that I had that was just, that was when I had the mutual funds with the Dave Ramsey
Mm-hmm.
type
Okay.
of mindset. And that was after I moved it all over from that advisor, sold all of that mess and put it into the Roth with Fidelity. And so I rolled some over and started investing in the S&P 500 fund with Fidelity last year of whatever it was, like what, April, May last year, I believe, when the market dipped at the
Yeah.
very bottom.
Right.
So yeah, my timing was impeccable on that, and it's done really well since then. So, um, but don't time it. Just open it up and start putting in. And I would tell anybody that, because even buying the dips, I think there was some discussion on Twitter today about buying the dips. Is it timing the market or whatever? Jury's still out on that one. I personally feel like it's timing the market myself, but I think it was you, when you
It was
tweeting
me.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was you. Okay,
Yeah.
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 So yeah, I don't do that. I do not tell people to do that. Just put it in. It's easy,
Mm-hmm.
simple. Open the account, put the money in, invest it, and let it sit, index and chill, and
Right.
then go live your life, because that's what I do. And um, it's really just as simple as that. There's really no secret to it. I mean, it's just simple as that. Also, too, I set up automatic contributions. So I do that, and that a little systematic too, just because if I had to rely on myself to do it, that would be a dumpster fire. So I put those systems in place of $500 per month, and that's enough to max it out. But going back to cash flow, sometimes I just go ahead and just max it out. Just if we have some extra cloud money, like I was talking about earlier, I just throw that in. Sometimes our income is variable, so sometimes we make more on some months than we do some other months, and then I'll just go ahead and throw a certain percentage extra into the Roth. But I'm really excited because I've already maxed out the Roth this year, so I'm looking into doing some other type investing too. So been a lot of discussion about crypto here lately, Bitcoin going up to 100 grand by the end of the year. So I don't want to miss out on that. So I may dip my toes into Bitcoin here for long. I did open a Coinbase account a
Oh,
couple of weeks
nice.
ago.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but still index funds. I'm still doing my research. I'm
Yep.
still letting people convince me that it's a good idea. And there's plenty of people out there doing
Right.
that. So, but I may do just a 2% into a crypto
Yeah.
here soon. 2% of my portfolio into crypto, and that's not much. Your friend Andy, he made a good point a couple of days ago. 2% of your portfolio is not, in the grand scheme of things, not really that much.
Right.
So what do you have to lose? And I completely understand that. So that's what I'm thinking about doing now. But that's what I'm personally what I'm doing. But anyone that's just starting off, definitely index funds is the way to go. And then once you start learning, once you start growing and you start accumulating more knowledge, if you want to branch off into other things, 100% go for it. But when it comes to order of operations, I like what Brian Preston says. I don't know if you're familiar with Brian Preston and the Money Guy
No.
Show. I
Oh, the Money
encourage you
Guy
to,
show.
yeah, the Money Guy
Yeah.
Show. Check him
Okay.
out.
Yeah.
He's really cool. He's got order of operations, and so pay off the debt, get the emergency fund, get the matched your 401k, and then start investing into to RODs and get that tax free growth because that's super powerful. We also do an HSA too.
Mm-hmm.
We have an HSA through my employer, so we're fortunate to have the ability to invest in that also. And again, that's just real low cost index funds there as well, and all about keeping the costs low and the growth as high as possible. And right now, the market's doing awesome, so you could really put in anything and it would grow. But that's kind of the dangerous part too, right? People
Right.
get kind of caught up into all these other speculative investments. I mean, literally everything's going up right now, so why not put it into this crap coin? But that's what I do. It's just real simple stuff, and I keep it simple because it is simple if you make it simple. You can complicate stuff all day long, but at the end of the day, there's simple processes you can put in place to make this stuff not as intimidating, because it is intimidating if you're first starting off. Because when I first started investing, I thought that investing was, buying Apple stock or buying, Coca-Cola. I have this iPhone in my hand. Well, yeah, I'm going to buy Apple.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way most people think, and that's the way I thought. Um, and I got burned doing that just because I didn't know what I was doing. But then when I found index funds, it made it so easy to get into the market without having to do all the research, because I don't, that's not really me. I don't like sitting down and doing all the research. And some people love that, and that's fine. If that's your thing, then go for it. It's just personally not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it would be outlandish to say that it's 95% of people's, it's not their thing either. So you certainly do not have to do that. There's ways to get in the market without having to do a whole lot of research. So that's my message, and that's what I like to say on Twitter all the time.
I really like that, especially that last part. I'm gonna back you up on that. Those last few points you made, Jared. You know, there are people out there that we know who do their 2 hours of research a week on a specific company. And then they do that for five other companies. So they do 12 hours of research a week and they say, I feel good about buying these six companies. I'll tell you what, that's a heck of a lot more research than I've done. But I
Hmm.
would point out that each one of those companies has some guy on Wall Street at some hedge fund who's doing 50 hours of research a week on just that one company, trying to decide if, for example, $60 per share is the right price to buy or sell that company at. And if you are investing in individual stocks, that guy on Wall Street, you can think of him as your competition, right? He's the one, he's trying to make smart decisions or she's trying to make smart decisions. And meanwhile, here you are after work on your iPhone on the Robinhood app doing your research, trying to make that smart decision too. That's pretty tough. And so
Yeah,
I
or
advise,
like I was
yeah,
on
yeah.
reading Yahoo Finance articles. Yeah, I
Right.
don't.
Right.
That's definitely not a good resource, by the way. So,
Exactly right. I like to point out to people, people watch my uncle, Jim Kramer. I'm Jesse Kramer, Uncle
oh yeah,
Jim Kramer, not my real uncle, but I like calling him Uncle Jim. I tell you that much. So
yeah.
he's got the show Mad Money. If you're unfamiliar with Mad Money, Jim Kramer sits on CNBC. He's got all these sound effects and bull horns and buzzers and clown horns, and he talks about stocks. He screams into the microphone like this. It's a buy. It's a buy. He gets you all pumped
Hmm.
up about a stock. Well, guess
Yep.
what? He's talking about it a day or 2 days or 3 days after some big news event happened, right? The market has already reacted to that news by the time you hear Jim Cramer talking about it. And the next morning, when you log into your account and you buy that stock because Jim Cramer told you to, man, it is too late. The market has already adjusted for that news. It's hard to beat the market. It's hard to know more than the market. And one of the best things you can do is just say, I submit. I'm just going to take the average of what the market gives me. Just give me the average and charge me close to zero fees for doing that. And that's exactly what an index fund does.
Yeah, and if I was going to delve into individual stocks, I would rather be on a Discord server somewhere on Money Twitter than listen to a Kramer because like you said, if you're hearing it on his show, you've already missed out,
Right.
right? So, but again, going back to simple, I like keeping things simple, and so that's why index funds are so appealing to me. And so you know, if it's your thing, if individual stocks is your thing, if dividend stocks is your thing, go for it. It's just not my thing.
Ditto.
Yeah.
It's a good attitude
Yep.
to have. Like go ahead and go for it. I think it's cool. I'm going to cheer someone on if they want to do it and they think they can find success. And I'm interested to hear their stories. But like you said, Jared, it's not for me. I got other fun things to do with my time, like writing about stocks rather than rather than doing
Right.
the research on it myself.
Yeah. No, you can make a lot of money if you know how to do it. Like what you're saying, going back to the guy on Wall Street, you can drive to compete against him, and you can learn a lot of stuff if you really
Hmm.
dive into it. But I'm like you. I've got other things to do.
Well, cool, man. I'm glad we're on the same page. And I think that's great advice for any listener, especially, max out the 401k, then move on to your Roth. Brokerage accounts give you some flexibility that you can pull your money out before 59 and a half if you want to. You don't have to. And then an HSA, a health savings account. Listeners, if you aren't familiar with that, figure out if you have one available to you because it has the best tax advantages of just about any account that an American, at least, can get access to. But, Jared, I'm wondering, let's move on to the rapid fire questions. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Cool, man. All right. The first one of the famous Best Interest Podcast rapid fire questions. What is the last material object or personal luxury that you spent $100 or more on?
Yeah, so I had to really think about this one. So we went on vacation a few weeks ago and went to a really nice dinner on the beach. It was north of 100, and so, but it was all in the budget and it was all planned out, and that's what makes it even better is being able to do that and not have to worry about it. So that was probably the most recent thing is just a nice dinner with the family, man. And we made a lot of memories doing it. So seafood on the Gulf, it doesn't get any better than that, and that's what it was, and it was super awesome.
That is so cool. It sounds
Yeah.
delicious. And also,
Oh,
like you
it was
said,
great.
there's nothing quite as satisfying as some sort of luxury, some sort of special treat that you've planned for, that's budgeted, that's all taken care of, and you don't have to worry about the financial part one bit. That is awesome.
That's right. Yep, and also it was put on a credit card too.
Oh, those points. Got to get those
Oh yeah,
points.
gots to
Okay,
get the
Dave.
points. Yep.
Now I think Dave Ramsey listens to this podcast once in a while, but he hasn't tuned in a few episodes, so I think you're safe.
Well, if you're listening now, Dave, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but going a different route now.
Yeah, he writes in. He'll write in some fan mail if he wants to write you off, Jared. I'll let you know. I'll forward it to you. All
That
right.
sounds good.
Next question. What's a good habit that you're trying to form or a bad habit that you are trying to break?
Yeah, so one habit that I have right now that I'm trying to break, and I think this is from what I've seen on Twitter, a lot of people that are in the Twitter space promoting their content on Twitter is just putting the phone down more often. When I come home um, from work, I'm in the prime time hours of engagement on Twitter, and so I'm tempted to sit down and post a tweet or maybe engage with some other people. But my son is sitting there looking at me while I'm doing that. So I'm being more intentional about putting that down and being present. And so Um, and I've made a lot of strides on that here lately. I'm happy to say so because they're only little for so long, right? And as I said earlier, I don't have time to do individual stocks because I've got all this other stuff I've got to do, like playing with my 6 year old, playing with my 1 year old. And so that's another great thing about that, man, is having the ability to not only take advantage of the market and take advantage of all these companies in this index fund, and have all this extra time to play with my kids or take a walk or spend time with my wife and all this stuff that is honestly more important at the end of the day, right? So having that spare time, how are you going to use it? And then that's what I'm trying to be intentional with, and I'm getting better. I really am. But as far as one good habit, I'm trying to form drink more water. you
Nice.
know, so
Yeah.
I got a 20-ounce cup, and I try to do 5 each day. And so that's my goal right now. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Well, your first answer, that was a beautiful answer. I love that answer. Put the phone down, spend time with your family. Who can argue with that? And the second answer, very pragmatic, very practical. Recent episode, I think it was 28, guest Adam Schaup. Adam wrote to me. I asked him for some fitness tips, and one of the big ones that he sent to me was drink more water, man. Water just it's good for you, hydrates you, it fills you up, and convinces your body that you don't need more calories because often you just need more water. Just a win-win-win.
And I think that's a tweet I've seen somewhere too, right? Drink more water.
Right after eat more steak and take cold showers. Maybe
Right.
all at the
Yeah.
same time, I think, right?
I'm gonna get there one of these days. I promise.
I yeah,
I'm
I
striving.
I bring my steak in the shower only at 4 a.m. though, after my spinach smoothie.
And don't go buy Starbucks after that because your net worth will go to zero.
Only if you've done yoga first.
That's right.
Second yoga of the day. That's when you get Starbucks. All right.
I love it.
Well, earlier you told us about the Every Dollar app, and I always like to ask people, what's your favorite financial tool or app or service, and why? I mean, is it Every Dollar, or maybe is it Fidelity? What do you like the best, J Rod?
Yeah. So since I've already mentioned every dollar, I'll mention one tool that I use, and I've got to give a shout out to Landshark.
Oh,
If you're
Landshark.
familiar
Yep.
with him on Twitter, yeah. So he shared his net worth tracker, and he was gracious to give it to me as a download. And so I downloaded it, and it's just a simple Google Sheets. But the way he's got it laid out is real easy to use, really simple. So that's what I use to track my net worth with is that sheet that he created. And also too, as you said, Fidelity, that the user interface is so user friendly, and that's why I went away from E-Trade because I had an E-Trade account, but it's a little more cumbersome to use from what I found. So yeah, Fidelity is what I use for my 401k and my Roth accounts, and that's why I push it so much on Twitter. Is just because not only is what I use and what I'm familiar with, but it's just so super it's super easy to use. Is what I've
Yeah.
seen.
Nice. Yeah. I'm a happy Fidelity user as well. And last one, Jared. If I gave you a billboard to share any message with the world, what would you say?
So you've heard the acronym KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid.
I have.
Well, I don't use that. I've modified it to say keep investing strategies simple.
I like it.
Because it's again, I practice what I preach, and I keep things super simple. As I've said 1,000 times on here probably, but it's super relatable, and that's why, going back to the index funds, keep it simple, man, because the more you grow, the complexity is going to naturally come. So keeping it simple starting off, it's going to allow you to navigate that complexity one day once your net worth grows to a certain point. So kind of setting things off on the right tone by keeping things super simple first, because later on things will get more complex, and hopefully it'll allow me to navigate that a little easier later on down the road.
Excellent. Keep investing strategies simple. Simple is the way to go. Jared, people want to reach out to you and talk through some of their investing strategies or want to learn from you, I know you've got a book, an ebook that you offer to people. I mean, how can people reach you and how can they find this book?
Yeah, so you can find me first on Twitter at Money Jrod. And you can find my book there on my profile under the bio. It's just a free book that I've made that just details our whole journey and how we utilized a budget to pay off our debt and how we're utilizing a budget even today to help us reach our investing goals. Because it's certainly a lifestyle to us, and I touch on a lot about the relational aspect of money and how to navigate that in a marriage. So it's just detailing the things that I've learned along the way. And so I wanted to get that out there for people just so they can have it and, totally free. Just go download it. And also, you can go to my website, jrodmoney.com, and just sign up for my newsletter. I'm just now really getting it started. I've not really done much with it right now, but that's the next phase for me right now. So go check it out.
Very cool. So that's Money Jrod on Twitter. Or is it Jrod Money on Twitter?
It's actually Money J-Rod
It is
because
Money Jrod.
J-Rod
Okay.
Money was already taken. So I had to switch it up there. So a little confusing, but yeah, put the money first, then J-Rod.
Okay, Money Jrod on Twitter or jrodmoney.com. Don't worry, listeners. I'll throw the links in the show notes so you can find them all there. Jared, the Alabama debt killer himself, thank you so much for coming onto the Best Interest podcast and sharing your thoughts with us.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on here, Jesse. You've already had an all-star lineup already, and so I'm honored to be on that list, man. I really appreciate you having me.
You belong on that list, my man. Thank you again for coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.
Huge shout out to J Rod. Thank you, Jared, for coming on to the Best Interest podcast today. And if you listeners want to get a hold of J Rod, I've included all of his relevant links in the show notes. If you want to reach out to me, and I love hearing from you guys, my email is jesse@bestinterest.blog, or you can follow me on Twitter where my username is bestinterest_JC. If you find this content valuable and you want to give back, I have 3 easy, free options for you, always absolutely free. Option 1, very simple. Subscribe to the podcast from the app you're listening to right now. And then options 2 and 3 are to leave a rating and leave a review of the Best Interest podcast. Tell me what you think. I want to hear back from you guys. We can continue to invest in one another because, as Ben Franklin said, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Sharing with others is investing in their knowledge. So thank you all for listening to this episode 33 of the Best Interest podcast.
Everything good?
So it's a little dark. It's hard to see, but like a 8-inch limb, I don't know how long, 15, 20 feet long, fell on my neighbor's garage
Oh, wow.
from the tree that's like in between our properties, right on his side of the property line. So like third of the tree is over my house and 2/3 is over his, and it's dead and it needs to come down on,
Oh my gosh.
his garage just got thumped. And my girlfriend, as we're walking back in the house, my girlfriend just looks at me and she goes, "Our house is next." It's like, I know. So that's we'll spend some money on that sometime
You,
soon.
you got a chainsaw?
Say it again.
You got a chainsaw? You can go
I
cut it down
know.
real quick.
No, yeah. I've got a dad and a brother with a chainsaw and they both know how to use it. That's
There
probably the
you go.
plan.
Hey, well, that goes back to our emergency fund discussion. You just never know, man.
I know. It's totally true. It's totally true. That's why it's there for. I mean, right. Like,
Wow.
insurance, I actually could see if insurance would help pay for it. But if not, it's
Honestly,
like,
it probably would.
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it's a act of God, I guess, is what
right.
they call it, right? But
Yep.
at least it wasn't
Right.
your house, right, or whatever. You said it was your neighbor's.
Yeah. It was the neighbor's
Yeah.
house. Exactly. So
So
it's like his damage is going to be covered by insurance, I'm sure, if he wants to put the claim in.
sure.
I would just think, would an insurance company rather pay out $100,000 claim on a destroyed house or help me pay 2 grand to get a tree surgeon in here and bring the thing down? I
I'll
don't
be
know.
honest. That's one thing I'm not an expert on
Yeah,
is
same,
insurance. So
same.
But yeah, I saw your eyes. I was like, "Holy crap, something's going on." I don't know if I'm about to witness a murder or what, but
It's my bad poker face. um,
yeah, don't don't play poker, man, 'cause it's not, you don't have the poker face.